Please note that though this is a spoiler-free review of the subject, I do spoil the series and/or franchise leading up to this particular entry. Put off by how long this video is, don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. Justice League in 3D. And apologies for the image cutting out on one of the pre-videos there. The mouse slipped, and yes. Justice League in 3D. Take 2. Because I realized that I forgot to bring the note phone. And if this goes as these usually do, the program is automatically going to assemble this. Otherwise, I guess this just will open without any videos. Yeah, just in case of that. As you can tell at the bottom of this, I am spoiling the franchise up to this point, but this is a spoiler-free review of this particular movie. I do not have a slight buzz going, but I am sleepy. So I'm going to try to get through the stuff that I most want to say and not. There's probably going to be stuff that I either speed through or skip. A lot of it not having to do with this particular movie, which is stuff I thought of while watching movies and to remind me for, so you know, stuff that had happened in movies leading up to this and others that aren't in canon and in continuity. Anyway, plot. This is set months after the events of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Inspired by Superman's sacrifice for humanity, Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince unite a team of metahumans in order to face the threat of Steppenwolf and his army of parademons who are on the hunt for the 3 mother boxes on Earth. And let's see. Those are not real. Yeah, apparently, you know, with Superman dead, there's like a crime wave. Even though he never, as far as we've been told and have seen, the only people he ever stopped, that Superman ever stopped, were fellow Kryptonians. We didn't see him stop any crime. Batman tried to, but yeah. And this movie seems, you know, is built in part on the assumption that Superman did make the world better, where BVS specifically said that he didn't. Did I have fun watching this? I'd say 70% of the material, quote-unquote, worked for me. You know, action, humor, yeah. All of the action worked for me. Is it a good movie? Not really, but it's not yeah, it's an enjoyable watch, which a lot of Batman v Superman kind of isn't. I mean, it's essentially a series of action scenes and like scenes that kind of have to be there for the action scenes to make sense. You know, a little bit of storytelling in between, and maybe some character moments and such. But really, it's just a series of action, mostly. There's not that much plot or theme or character. And yeah, if you want to see the members of the Justice League kicking ass, and yeah, then this movie is going to give you that. And it's a very forgettable movie. It's like junk food, and it's just the kind that kind of like it takes the edge off. Like you're not as hungry afterwards as you were before eating, but it's not like something to write home about either. Now, yeah, just briefly, this is not about this movie, but Consumer has this article, is Toad wearing a hat or is that his head? A serious investigation. This kind of thing keeps baby Groot up at night. Once you watch this movie, and I do think that it's worth watching if at all you're into these movies, make sure you watch the Folding Ideas vlog on the movie. You know, you can watch it before if you don't mind spoilers. I certainly made sure to wait. And 3D. Now, the 3D, I didn't notice it at all, honestly. You know, nothing cheesy, no depth. Yeah, just I didn't notice it, much like, you know, with Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman. Parts of the movie are so dark that 3D, yeah, you know, for stuff like that, you want more, you know, more brightness, so that because the 3D glasses and the process make it darker. The color costumes help a lot, but the settings should have been brighter for that. The effects are, they're good. They're not amazing. They're not like outstanding. You know, the Folding Ideas vlog points out, and I noted this myself, the fact that Steppenwolf is entirely CG. It's not Uncanny Valley because he doesn't look like that much like a human. You know, he has a basic humanoid shape. You know, 2 arms, 2 legs. Yeah, but he doesn't look like a face that they put makeup on. But it doesn't feel like he's really there. It feels like you're watching a CGI creation. Yeah. Notes taken while watching. There we go. This movie is actually less than 2 hours if you don't count the end credits. I did not note. I was too excited by the post-credit scene, and I think any major fan of these guys, that's no, Scotsman, a lot of fans will be super excited by the post-credit. Definitely make sure to stay until. But yeah, without end credits, it's more like an hour and 112 minutes. An hour and 112 minutes. Yeah, 112 minutes. The action with Steppenwolf is very one-note. He's boringly OP, and just, it's basically just he arrives at a place and he fights with a MacGuffin, and he probably ends up with a MacGuffin because that just makes it easier for the film to, you know, if he fights over and over and doesn't get the MacGuffin, either the good guys would have to put the mother boxes in the same place, or we'd have another scene of him getting, and I acknowledge that, and there are 3, and it's the one movie, so that, but the scenes are not varied. He shows up a place, again, they're fun, it's enjoyable action, but it just feels like you could have done this with a montage, dude. If you didn't have different material, I mean, it's like a video game almost. Like, if you imagine that the player was actually playing as Steppenwolf, it would be that each of these levels open with obtain the mother box in, and then the location name, and the location name is the only thing that changes. Like a tutorial mission kind of thing almost. Where each time you go to a new location to get a new mother box, you learn at least one new skill, and that's it. It's just so utterly just, yeah, fast food. And yeah, like I said, I get it. 3 mother boxes, you have to have them get all 3. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is also a movie. I hope this is as fun as I can imagine. This is probably either a really frustrating or a really funny video to watch because I'm so freaking sleepy. But I refuse to go to bed and forget so much of this movie because it is fun to talk about, and just record this in the morning. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is also a movie wherein the bad guys are trying to get, in that case it's 1 MacGuffin, not 3. But, again, if you didn't have, you could have just had the good guys put the mother boxes in the same place, and, like, have them be like, this is safe, it's safer this way, it means we only have to protect one place, doo-doo-doo. And it's been entirely too long since I watched any Lupo. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 has very varied scenes of the band. Just to briefly, you've got the scene that establishes Ronan and what he wants, basically. You have the scene of the bad guys arriving at a certain location, and the good guys are maybe not quite there for a reason that if you watch the movie. You have scenes of, like, other characters trying to get the MacGuffin who may or may not be working for the bad guy. There's really no reason for there to be only one bad guy character in this, considering that there's all this MacGuffin-y stuff, because another movie it has a lot in common with is Avengers 1. And Avengers 1 does not have one scene after another wherein Loki is trying to get a MacGuffin. There's maybe 2 MacGuffins in that movie, and one of them he has like 5 minutes into the movie. Again, that movie has a lot of fun scenes with Loki facing off against the good guys, and they're different scenes from each other. Let's see, that's that. I do hope this video isn't frustrating. I try to get enough sleep. The movie opens on this basically podcast by some kids interviewing Superman, basically, and, like, being children, just, asking questions that don't, like, one of them says, how many of the people you saved did you save? And, like, the other kid, like, realizes, that made no sense, dude. You just, and it's like, have you ever fought a hippo? That's a stupid question, dude. They're, like, dangerous, and I think they are. I think they're, like, super, like, into eating people, and yeah. And it's actually, yeah, it's supposed to establish that he made people happy, and people wanted to talk to him, and yeah, it's such a retcon, but man, is it nice to see Henry Cavill smile. Again, Folding Ideas points out it goes totally against the characterization we've seen up to this point. But, you know, a ton of stuff in this movie is not really, you just kind of have to roll with it, or you're going to be annoyed by a lot of stuff, and I didn't want to be annoyed, and I know it's not a choice for everyone, it's not always a choice for me, but yeah, the man, he's such a great Superman. He is my favorite since Christopher Reeve, and Superman smiles. He's not this brooding, unhappy person who just, I think Foley has a permanent sneer on his face. Yeah, he smiles, and yeah. And they actually point out, like, they're like, does the S really mean hope? And he's like, yeah. Why does it look like an S? And he actually addresses it, which I really appreciate, because that is, again, if you haven't already, watch It's an S Superman movies remixed. I think the full video is gone. For some reason, if you just write It's an S Superman, it just finds the scene where just, yeah. Anyway, it's just, you know, yeah, just, that's so funny. Hope. Spider-Man. They're making another Shrek. But yeah, he actually explained, no, it's kind of supposed to be like this. It's like a snake. Like, you know, hope is, and then he's like, hope is like car keys. You know, you put them in the bundle, and then you lose all of them no matter what's weight. And, you know, you have you see the front page of the papers of the Daily Bugle, and it's like, you know, oh, the things are getting worse because Superman isn't, and there's like burglars burgling, and for some reason this one burglar seriously has the face of Zod, you know, Zod actor, and I'm just waiting for him to say we're all lonely or break up with Eminem's mom or something. And, you know, Batman hunts parademons, and it's actually kind of this nice, like, he catches the burglar, and he does the thing where he starts to kind of lower, you know, the guy, so it's like, oh, he's gonna let me fall to the ground, and the guy's like, what do you want from me? Which is always a good thing to ask of a hero who's got you, like, but yeah, and he's like, fear, it attracts them, and yeah, they can smell it, something like that. And there's, and he kind of catches a parademon, but then it like blows up, which is fun. And it's like, it's time then. Is it time? And then you have the Zack Snyder opening credits scene, and if only Andy's also brings this up, where it's like, you know, oh, see, the Superman logo is here and there, and it's just like, oh, these people mourning Superman because he was so amazing, because in Zack Snyder's mind, the Superman he's created is amazing, and I can't wait for him to show us what makes this Superman amazing, because we sure haven't seen it yet. But again, I really like Cavill in the role. But yeah, the music is super overbearing. You know how, and again, fully Andy's, you know, Watchmen flashbacks. You know how in Watchmen he literally, not figuratively, put the sound of silence over a funeral scene. I don't know the song in this one, but literally, like, some lyrics are like, and, you know, you see people dying and people, you know, just, yeah. I feel like it's just a matter of time before, like, there's a rain scene in a Zack Snyder movie, but the heroes are like, you know what? this doesn't bother me that much. And then Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head starts playing or something. Part of the opening credits, which has slow-mo, of course, has like racist violence. And I'm like, I did not know that Zack Snyder realized that sometimes racists commit violence against powerless people of other ethnicities. I kind of thought that, you know, given the way he uses other ethnicities in 300, and I think it was Dave of you know, Brad Jones's friend, pointing out that this the Batman v Superman Joe Chill is Middle Eastern for no other reason than to stoke. It was kind of, yeah. And this has pretty good introductory scenes to the heroes. Like the first time we see Batman, he's doing the Batman thing. I forget, I think it was like the Joe Blow reviewer putting out, Gotham has gargoyles again, which is nice. And not just one, but yeah. You know, they get to do some action in the introductory scene. And on the ones we didn't already meet, they kind of sort of try to say, you know, this is what that character is like. Excuse me, and here's a little bit of backstory and such. But yeah, it's, again, fully ideas. Whoever cut this down to 2 hours cut just everything that wasn't absolutely vital. So yeah, I mean, the yeah, really, the 3 new characters. I mean, probably Cyborg gets it worst, but all 3, it's like we just barely get a sense. They basically just say, this thing happened to me, and now I, you know, wear this thing and have superpowers or such. And just, like, literally, Aquaman just briefly says, you're just gonna tell me what to do. The Atlanteans told me what to do, and I don't want to be told what to do by anyone. And it's like, oh, okay, so that's why he's not in Atlantis, and even though he comes from Atlantis. And that's basically it. And then a little later, it's like, you know, how can you deny your lineage? And Aquaman basically goes, wah, I'm adopted. And that's basically it. And Cyborg is like, ever since the accident, I keep getting these new powers that I can't control. And, you know, and it kind of switches from scene to scene if he can or can't control them. The Wonder Woman scene, you see this in some of the trailers. It's this, you know, like terrorist guy, you know, this small group of terrorists, and they're holding all these hostages, and they've got like a, you know, suitcase that might or might not be a weapon of some kind. Wonder Woman saves a lot of people there, a lot of civilians, but the guards, before she shows up, get slaughtered. And again, it's Zack Snyder who thinks like, this is such a cool scene. If it were a spy movie and this was the scene that introduced, and then, you know, you cut to a briefing and Tom Cruise is being told these, you know, as you can see, these guys are ruthless. They keep killing. But it's the superhero is supposed to show up and save, and it wouldn't have been difficult. It's just a quick rewrite, and she can show up in time to save the guards. But nope. But the saving of the civilians is awesome. I loved it. Now, we do get a brief explanation for why the terrorists are terrorists. You know, it's not next. And basically, one of the terrorists empty the clip of an AR at a group of hostages, and Wonder Woman does the No Man's Land crossing thing, blocking every bullet with the bracelets. You know, he sprays across them, and she runs past, you know, into the line of fire over and over, deflecting a bullet. Awesome. I love how it takes the thing we already know she could do and builds on it in that kind of way, because in No Man's Land, it's not that they're about to hit civilians. You know, it's her getting from point A to point B, even though that trip is extremely difficult and no one other than her would have been able to. You know, you could argue that Superman would probably have been able to save these people, but they're the only two heroes that we've met so far in the DCU who could have done that. And we've seen plenty of Superman, you know, saving people, just not from other people. And but yeah, Aquaman basically says, you know, oh, I just want to be left alone by people, and that's, you know, part of the Wolverine thing, and it just does not work as well, because really, at the end of the day, Wolverine is not like, you know, there's that like, I mean, it's like a meme or just online joke or something, where it's like, you know, Aquaman and Batman are talking, you know, and Batman's like, oh, so what do you do? I take care of the villains and of the villains underwater. Huh, I didn't know there were any villains underwater. Yeah, because I do my job. And that's, I mean, Aquaman literally, we're not really introduced to villains under the sea. So it's not like, how are you ignoring all these villains under the sea? Things will be better downwards, whether under the sea. But it's like, so you're kind of, you're pouty because, like, adoption issues, and because of that, you're not, like, it's kind of like if Thor wasn't about him doing, you know, going against what he, you know, he specifically told you cannot do this would be awful. If it's not that, but kind of him being like, you know what, I kind of, you know, this whole thing with me having a lot of responsibility, I kind of, I don't really like it very much, so I'm just gonna leave. I mean, at the end of the day, at least in the second, at the end of the second Thor movie, I guess I didn't say anything about, well, I'm not going to spoil those, but, you know, when Thor makes that decision, it's not, you know, things are not as dire, and it's not this permanent kind of, it's not the introduction to the character, you know. The introduction to Aquaman is okay. I mean, this is a scene that's supposed to sell you on this guy. This is a scene that's supposed to make you want to watch him for the rest of the movie and go and watch his solo movie. And I didn't really feel like it did that. And I don't have a problem with Aquaman. I'm not one of the people who hates him. You know, this is not quite the Aquaman I'm used to. I mean, when I read Aquaman, he had like the what's it called? Not like a claw, but like a harpoon on one of his hands. You know, I am used to the one who has like a beard and slightly long hair. Although of course it's blonde and he's Caucasian, and it makes a lot of sense to cast instead this guy who looks a little exotic. Why would the underwater guy be a white dude, you know, with like blonde hair? Doesn't he have blue eyes as well? Just no, come on, makes more sense this way. I quite like, you know, Alfred like teases Batman about Wonder Woman. It's like basically, you know, it's like they're talking about putting the team back together, and you know, Bruce is like, did you call Diana? And it's like, you've got her number. Yeah, but I figured you would maybe like start the, you know, conversation there. It's like, oh, maybe I should have had a letter sent. Do you want to join Bruce's team? You know, please mark yes or no, you know, in the box. And Bruce walks right into this one. He's like, I'm interested in her skills. I'll bet you are. Thanks, Whedon. I quite enjoyed that. I would be very surprised if that wasn't Whedon. And there's the, you know, when you meet Barry, I think that the Flash's intro is pretty good. I was really glad that it wasn't that scene we saw in the trailers of him coming home and there's Batman. You know, it's a fine scene, but it's not that compelling of an introductory scene, and it's not the introductory scene. The introductory scene is him going to the prison to talk to his father, and like he, you know how you have to sign your name to get into prison to you know visit zone, and he goes into to sign, and just immediately like the guy behind him goes like, you want to hurry up or something, and Flash just turns around briefly, and you see his face, you don't see the other guy's face, and the other guy's like, are we gonna have a problem here? And you just see the little lightning that means that Flash has used his powers, and he's like, no problem. And then it cuts, and you see that he drew like glasses on the guy's face so fast that he didn't notice it. That's pretty funny. And yeah, a lot of the way he is funny without being annoying, and yet the drama with his dad basically works. And I'm not the first to make this joke, but yeah, this Joe Morton from he's literally just like, Miles Dysoning all over, not like again, I figure this is Joss Whedon. This is Joss Whedon being like, if we cast this guy, we gotta do this. He literally says, if you could see what we could learn from this technology, like, and it's not as if he's talking about like, oh, we discovered this really cool thing that we hadn't expected. No, it is technology that isn't, it's not a robot from the future. It's an energy thingy from another planet. So it really, yeah. I demand a crossover in which both Joe Morton characters come face to face and like recite the line about how, yeah. Now, but yeah, with Cyborg, you have this. He talks about how he's really struggling to keep up with the evolving tech, and one of the first things we see is he can fly, and that it works. That's like, oh, okay, so that's one of his powers, and so later when you see him fly, yeah. Now, let's see. We do see Themyscira in this. I quite enjoyed it. And, they have one of the mother boxes there, and, basically, the mother box, this is told very early on, it's backstory. It's basically Steppenwolf came to Earth to conquer, and he had the 3 mother boxes, and so they fought him, as far as I understood, and they fought, which is why the 3 mother boxes are on Earth, rather than, around the universe. And he was fought by humans, Atlanteans, Wonder Women, Amazonians. That's it. And thus they were able to defeat him, and they agreed to each have humans kept 1 mother box. I don't think we are told how the human mother box ended up in the hands of Joe Morton, which is, again, I mean, like, you literally see it being buried by like Vikings. So it's like, how did it end up in America in the hands of a scientist instead? But anyway, I don't know, maybe it was there and it went by too fast or whatever. But yeah, so there's one on Themyscira, there's one on Atlantis. And yeah, that does of course mean that Steppenwolf goes there to try to get it. And I appreciate, as obvious a place as it's placed, they had the Amazonians. It didn't really seem like the Atlanteans, but the Amazonians, they did have a plan. It just maybe turns out not to be quite enough, but they had a contingency plan for what they would do if someone showed up to try to take the mother box. And the parademons are introduced, or rather, there are parademons in the flashback too, which I believe comes before. But yeah, in Themyscira, it's not just Steppenwolf, he brings a bunch of parademons with him. And I have to say, that is one thing that Avengers, you almost forget that there's really this army. I mean, they mention it occasionally. You see that they are there at the very start of the movie, and then you don't see them again until the very end. I think that it would have been cool if we had had just one that came with Loki and was there as like a second in command, kind of. You don't even have to give him lines or anything, and just have him, like, maybe you see him, like, you know, waving in, you know, send more or something. Yeah, maybe he's the one instead of Loki. So yeah, and they're fairly memorable in, you know, design and what they do and such. Not all of them. Now let's see. And yeah, and you have the, you know, when the Amazonians realize, you know, they can't leave the island, but they can signal Wonder Woman. And I appreciated seeing Queen Hippolyta again, and it's too bad that she doesn't interact directly with Wonder Woman, which is not a spoiler, because again, you know, they can't cross the stream separating the island from man's world, which would be nothing without a woman or a girl. And I quite enjoyed, like, there's this scene where, like, the Lois Lane, not just any, and Martha, the above ground Martha, are like talking about, like, you know, their situation and such, and like apparently Martha's place was like taken by the bank, and she literally has the line of, like, you know, banks, if you're a penny overdue, they immediately, you know, jump onto and take your thing. And it's like, I'm not sure I expected, you know, I don't know, again, maybe that's not Snyder, maybe that's despite Snyder's involvement, because that really doesn't sound like the thinking of an objectivist. It sounds like the exact opposite. So maybe Joss Whedon wrote it to, like, you know, tick off Snyder or something. And there's this, like, you know, Lois is kind of supposed to be taking a story, but apparently she's not quite getting to. So there's this other guy who's like pestering her to try to get, you know, who's your source? Well, my source is my source. I am what I am. And it's like, you know, maybe she'll take your call. Ah, so it's a she. And it's like, I mean, the guy has basically cracked it at this point. He just eliminated 50% of the world's population as potential sources for Lois Lane's story. This thing is gonna just go so smoothly now. And like the you know, he's like, oh, so it is a she, and then he walks off. And Lois Lane is like, it's not a she, and just, yeah, that's not sure why the scene is there, but it's just, and like Martha is like, you know, Clark said about you that you were the thirstiest young woman he had ever met. hungriest one, and it's like, Martha, mother-in-law TMI, seriously. And there's this early part where Cyborg is like, this new tech, and like his hands start glowing, and I'm like, please do not turn into I am number 4. And he's got like little screens sticking out, and he's like, scrolling through it like it's freaking Minority Report, and it's like, I've been there. Some UIs are just not very intuitive, and I appreciate that that's getting depicted. And I appreciate the mother boxes are briefly explained very early on, so you're not like completely lost about it. It's been a while since I read a story that had mother boxes. I do know Darkseid. I know a little bit about Steppenwolf, and know the JLA. Although I'm, more familiar with the pre-New 52 ones. Martian Manhunter, no Cyborg. Green Arrow, obviously Green Lantern, but that's on the way. I really appreciate that the flashback fight scene, you see several Green Lanterns, and it's not like blink and you miss. No. There are clearly Green Lanterns. Like, you see the willpower attacks, and one of them gets like knocked to the ground, and the ring comes off and like flies off, because obviously it's going for either the biggest jerk around, or someone who's actually worthy. And yeah, and around the time of the flashback, I noted that I liked the action and the effects, but not that much else in the movie. And I appreciate that they explain why Flash can run extremely fast, very long, and do all this stuff without getting hurt. And they actually have a very funny line, which is definitely Joss Whedon, where they're meeting, and in Flash's place, Batman and Batman's like, what's this suit about? Oh, it's I do competitive figure skating. And he's like, this is made from the material that the astronauts use to not like burn up on. It's very competitive figure skating. That's funny. That's legitimately funny. I will say there are people who are gonna hate him, who are gonna find him super annoying, and occasionally he was. And Wonder Woman appeals to Cyborg with her tragic backstory. I appreciated that, because it felt like something this Wonder Woman, and really the real Wonder Woman, would do. The classic comic book Wonder Woman. I realized that she's not real. If only. But yeah, she's not like mocking him or saying you have to do this. She's like, I get it. I've been there, but you have to. It's extremely important, and and he's not like super receptive to it, and she accepts that. She's not like badgering him about it. There's not a ton of stuff where it's like, wow, this is definitely the Wonder Woman that we got in the Solo movie, but that was one, and I appreciate it. And let's see. Aquaman going to Atlantis when to deal with Steppenwolf, and you see Mira fighting Steppenwolf, and it's ridiculously easy for Steppenwolf to take the mother box from there. Like, the Amazonians had sort of a plan with this. It just, yeah. Now, let's see. There's more than one jump scare with parademons, and I like totally knew it was coming. And it's also, I don't feel like the movie abuses that, because it is in scenes where you knew that was gonna happen, but it frickin' worked. I jumped and I was like shaking, and yeah. And I mean, I've just, you know, I'm replaying the Silent Hill series, and I'm currently playing Silent Hill 4. So, you know, so depending on how you feel about that game, it's either that despite me playing that, I could still be scared, or, you know, that game got me in the, just, yeah. You know, I enjoy that game a lot. It's very not Silent Hill in a lot of big ways, but it's very enjoyable to play. Now, the episode. What on earth does that mean? Barry can be kind of awkward, especially socially, and yeah, I felt like that worked. And the, let's see. Yeah, but there's like a scene where when he meets Wonder Woman, there's like a brief little moment there, but it could have been better. And it's probably like Folding Ideas point out that they cut out a lot of stuff. I really felt like that needed like a personality moment from Diana, and she just kind of like nods. Okay, he's there. I mean, she already doesn't have a lot to do. And the very great, what on earth does that mean? Oh, right, there's some really good, the finding that abandoned place that you see in some of the trailers, where there's also like a vehicle, and the Batman vehicle, pretty good. And, you know, when the team fights Steppenwolf, there are some really good moments there. Flash does not get a standout scene alone like the X-Men Quicksilver. And, excuse me. Okie doke. Let's see. Now, there's this bit where Aquaman saves the others from, like, really intense water flooding, and, yeah, that's the kind of thing you need in this kind of movie, where, yeah, I appreciate it. Too many of these movies forget that kind of thing. And let's see. Barry can... Mother box. I do not know what that means. Sometimes my notes are a little too concise. And oh, that's right. That's why. But then what did it mean? Anyway, oh, that's right. Barry is not invincible just because he's extremely fast. things can go wrong for him. I'm not going to give away how, but again, I appreciate it. All of the heroes in this, with one notable exception, are shown to have some kind of vulnerability, or maybe risk ending up in a situation out of their control. And the destruction, collateral damage porn kind of thing, they literally have, like, after a thing goes wrong, Gordon says to Batman, well, millions of dollars in structural damage. I see you haven't lost your touch. Again, greatly appreciate that they actually acknowledge that. And this is the ideal Gordon. He looks and acts just like the comic. I appreciated both the one from the first four and the Nolan one, but this is easily my favorite. Now, let's see. Oh yeah. So that's a spoiler. There's this bit where Wonder Woman gets like really upset with Batman and she punches him, and there's like a decent enough joke right after, but it's like this is not the Wonder Woman of the solo movie. She would not behave like that. Now, I will say there were a bunch of jokes that did not land with anyone in the theater, and we were like 2 or 3 dozen. Now, I think that might be what there is that don't spoil anything. So let's see. Near the end of the movie, Batman has this kind of like plane mobile aerial base. It looked way too much like the troop transport from Star Wars Episode 2. And I found that the glimpses of Themyscira and Atlantis were too brief. They remind me of Avengers 1 kind of scenes, but in those cases, there had been previous movies devoted to these characters, and here it feels like they thought that they would be able to have those movies out before this, and with that not being the case, if you enter this movie not really caring about Aquaman, you're not going to leave it caring about Aquaman. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. Technology. When it works, it's not as frustrating as when it doesn't. On plot. weeks ago it would be that this premieres 2 weeks after Thor Ragnarok, and then it was moved out by a week, so it's 3 weeks. And like in that video, you know, which studio made a mistake by having them so close? I would, yeah, the JLA. This movie is not going. People are going to watch Ragnarok and be like, that was fun, and then they're gonna watch this, or they're gonna listen to word of mouth and be like, eh, and then they're gonna watch Ragnarok again. And just Ragnarok is not a perfect movie. It definitely has problems, but it's a more, it works better as a film, and it's a more enjoyable watch overall. Both have great action, but Ragnarok isn't just action. If this were a game, it would be great that there was so much action. Excuse me. But yeah, you know, both of these movies have gods who are also kings, princes, princesses, and such. And, you know, I wonder which movie would make you more impressed by their skill, authority, make you feel like they deserve the position, and live up to it. Yeah, I would say Ragnarok, even though for a lot of it, Thor isn't being very Thory. Which is how people with a lisp pronounce sorry. And I apologize for that joke. Once again, operating on not enough sleep. So, you know, that is the reason if I, at some point in this video, say something that doesn't make any smart. Now, I was wondering if this movie was going to do chronological jumping, mismanaging the themes by undermining the tension before the film has even set it up. You know, at least Batman vs Superman doesn't jump chronologically poorly or otherwise, but, you know, based on Man of Steel, it'd be poorly. You know, Batman vs Superman has the dream sequences. You know, I was wondering if this would have a bad element like those are. Not really, although the jumping between the characters, because there's so much to establish, and the movie really doesn't do that, it's, you know, it loses a lot. It really, they should have waited until they got the solo movies out. But then again, considering how poorly their movies have been doing so far, they probably wanted a JLA movie out before they risked people losing all interest in, you know, Cyborg is nobody's favorite. And I mean, I'm not saying, obviously Cyborg is more, has more he can offer of, you know, skills that would be effective against, like, fighting gods and such than Hawkeye, but Hawkeye is interesting, he's fun. I was going somewhere with that. Yeah, you know, this doesn't have chronological jumping, doesn't have dream sequences, but the going back and forth between the different ones, because, you know, obviously it's an origin story for the team. They're not going to just be together from the start. Although, again, that would, honestly, like with Suicide Squad, if the movie had just started with them as a team, and then you get some flashbacks that explain how they got to be on the team, or some kind of, or just, you know, you get a scene with one of them standing by themselves, and they, like, look at a picture, or just stop and reminisce, and you have the wavy screen effect, and then we get, like, this is what happened with this character. Now, and from a technical standpoint, it does look and sound stunning, as typical for Snyder, for the parts that he directed, and as others have pointed out, you can really tell what parts are Snyder and what parts are Whedon. But, yeah, it does not have a lot of collateral damage porn, like most of these comic book movies have today. Now, in this, we see the heroes go out of their way to save people. I really appreciate that. Again, maybe it's Whedon, maybe it's someone else, but just, yeah. Now, up into and including Sucker Punch and possibly haven't watched it, Legend of the Guardians, Snyder does space his action scenes out over the course of the film. Of course, in Sucker Punch, none of the action can matter. Since then, it's almost exclusively at the 1 hour mark, or an hour and a half in. The climax starts, and then we have a series of more or less more or less very different action scenes with a little breathing room in between, then wrap up afterwards. Or maybe short and inconsequential action scenes before then. I'm not saying nothing happens, but it's tension, suspense, like we want action superhero comic book films. And in this, I'd say that it does pretty well. Again, a lot of them are basically the same action scenes, just set in different places and with different characters involved, different superpowers. But yeah, there is at least action before the climax. And it's not inconsequential. Yeah, it would have been a huge letdown to have this many powered characters if it doesn't have a lot of action in a lot of the early scenes of the film. Now, are there standout action scenes? I mean, the climax is pretty good, but ultimately, there's not that much you're not going to forget. You're going to forget a lot of this movie fairly shortly after. Now, not all of the action is big like Avengers Age of Ultron. A lot of it is smaller like Avengers 1 with these scenes where this is the first time these characters meet, so they're going to fight a little bit. Or this is some characters trying to prevent the bad guy from stealing a thing, but it doesn't, yeah. There's a lot of fan service in this. The reshoots are really obvious, like Suicide Squad. And Whedon did banter and team building. You can really tell, which, and it's like, I mean, they said, no, he's a team player. He'll do the, I believe that he tried, he wanted to, but yeah, you can really tell. And so, originally this was supposed to be part 1, not a standalone with a sequel. And I mean, I can kind of sort of see where this would lead into the second one, if I'm correct in my guess at what the second one's going to be. But I think it works fine as a standalone. It works. It has a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah, the movie's, around 2 hours long. And I saw, like, is it maybe Andrew Bridgman on College Humor? Usually I more or less agree with what he said, but yeah, he's like, no, you should have cut, like, stuff, Hawkeye's home life, and you should have cut, like, the Thor cave freak out of Age of Ultron. I'm like, what are you smoking? Yes, that movie needed to be, what was it, 2 hours and 20 minutes or so, and this movie should have been longer. I think Folding Ideas suggested that it might have been 3 or 4 hours long originally. I can see that. There's a ton cut. And it kind of does the effective intros, re-intros to characters that the first Avengers film does. But again, there's so much to introduce. These characters have so much, going on that is very current. Where really, a lot of the Avengers one, there's conflict, especially between some of the characters. But it's not really, I mean, at the end of the day, Captain America is like, okay, sure, I want to save the world, even if I don't feel like I want to go back out into the world. Iron Man is like, this is not at all what I expected, but clearly I am needed. Thor is like, yo, bro, come home. It's basically it. The other good guys are S.H.I.E.L.D. and they're of course like, we're gonna save the day. But and yeah, Banner is like, I clearly can help with this gamma radiation tracking, so I'm gonna do that and then I'm gonna leave because I don't want to cause any trouble. Not like a ton. Where the second one has a lot more for the characters, and this one. Yeah, I mean, the characters are basically in the process of their origin story, and it's like we get a brief glimpse into it, and because it's sort of there, but not in great detail, really, if they hadn't had it, if they just had, like, this guy is fast, this guy is from Atlantis, this guy is like a RoboCop dude. You know, it would have been like, wow, these characters are flat, but at least it wouldn't have been like, weren't we doing this thing with that character? But yeah, you know, the movie's essentially a string of action scenes. For crying out loud, you're not only introducing 3 new main characters, you're introducing the whole concept of the undersea nation that one of them, you know, not currently runs, but, you know, maybe he's gonna in the future. And just, yeah. And Batman has several vehicles, not just like 1 or 2, and they all get to do really cool stuff. Now, let's see. The action has, you know, is well choreographed, a lot of stand-up badass moments. And yeah, you know, there aren't really scenes that don't change the status quo, but there are these scenes that kind of sort of do, but might as well have been run together. I mean, Batman v Superman, you have several scenes of Superman saving people that you don't need to see the full scene, so they just put them as a montage. Because the point is that he's saving people in these, you know, extreme circumstances, doing things that no one but him could possibly do. And then you have the thing that Snyder is focusing on, which is the punditry rolling over. You know, if we didn't see him saving people, you know, hearing all these people say, oh, I don't know, maybe he's making the world a worse place, it would be like, maybe there, you know, it would be very different, the framing of it. Now, I was wondering if the Nightcrawler is going to be too similar to the Avengers Helicarrier. I don't really think so. And let's see. Characters major. Okay, let's see. Now, Batman, you know, he's now a team leader and recruiter. It feels so completely contrary to his previous, you know, in Batman v Superman, he's a paranoid nutcase. You know, Superman is the team leader. And, you know, yeah, I was also wondering why isn't it Wonder Woman going around making sure she saved the world? That was her sole motivation in her solo movie. You know, meanwhile, Batman took time off fighting crime to fight Superman, who had hardly done anything that harms or endangers people. You know, in 18 months, the only thing was the climax of Man of Steel. Everything else everything else we see him do is saves people. Again, in canon, I realize that there's like this scene of him attacking at the start of Batman v Superman, but that's not in the main theatrical cut, so it's not canon. But yeah, you know, the one objectionable thing he did was save people on foreign soil, which I get, that's objectionable, but it doesn't make him a bad guy. You know, and he did tons of things that saved people. It's because Snyder likes Batman more than he likes Wonder Woman. And just in general, you know, he likes bats more than he likes Wonder, and he likes men more than he likes women. And I don't mean that as a gay thing. That would be perfectly fine if he were gay, you know, given the fact that he has a wife and daughters. I don't think he is, unless he's bi. But he prefers the characters that are male and really hyper masculine to female characters, especially ones that whose femininity is a part of this. You know, in her solo movie, it's such a big part of what makes her a hero is her feminine traits. And yes, she kicks ass. She, you know, lifts tanks and throws them like, you know, like they were curled up paper. But she also forgives and understands, and just, yeah. And really, this one gets around the good guys doing a lot of, like, getting regular people killed. It really doesn't. Yeah, they managed to not. I don't know who is responsible, how they quite managed it, but really they cause damage, but not stuff that seems like it would kill people particularly. And again, we actually see them go out of their way to save people. Now, we have Lois Lane. She doesn't matter that much, although there is a reason she's in there. And Lex Luthor was cut. Now, Wonder Woman. She uses her weapons memorably, like in Batman v Superman or her solo movie. But, you know, as other critics have pointed out, she's basically the nanny, the babysitters, these goofy, fun male characters who get that personality. Largely gone is her own personality of the solo movie, which again was so compelling. But again, at least they're not just brooding all the time. But yeah, you know, she doesn't get to smile much in this, and certainly not smile the way she did in the solo movie. But she, you know, Barry smiles, and yeah, other characters smile and show optimism, you know, show joy. Now, let's see. Okay. We're getting there. Yeah, Barry Allen. Let's see. You know, both cinema Quicksilvers can be seen clearly as they run fast. And this, the Flash, looks kind of more like he's teleporting. And I know this is super, super superficial, but personally, I'm not really a fan of it. Maybe they do it to make it look distinctly different from the Kryptonian bursts of super speed, which I can totally understand. And Wonder Woman, Amazonian, Kryptonian, Atlantean, and let's see. Now, Aquaman, this Aquaman is like Wolverine, you know, hard drinking, aggressive, doesn't talk much. When he does, mocks others, tattoos. I get it. They wanted to. This is not the Super Friends Aquaman, you know, and yeah, ultimately he doesn't really use his special. I mean, he uses the trident some, and yeah, he's fast and strong and such. Can take a beating, but that's basically it. The character didn't need to be Aquaman. There's that one time where he stops like a wave from hitting the others, but really, I mean, that could have been, you know, could have been someone freezing the wave to ice so it didn't hit them, or like using telekinesis to. Really, it did not need to be Aquaman, and probably the stuff where he does real stuff was cut or something. It didn't feel like Snyder just didn't care about the character or something, you know. But yeah, it just, you know, the whole point is we want to see him do something cool with the power, you know. Again, that's Avengers movies do. The MCU movies do. And let's see, we've got Cyborg. Well, yeah, you know, him being a Justice League member from 2011 on, you know, the New 52. Before that, it was Teen Titans, and I don't know, to me, the moment I saw that he was going to be in this, I'm like, Cyborg is Teen Titans. I don't understand. You know, I didn't read the New 52. I haven't paid that much attention to comics for some years now. Yeah, you know, it's like there's Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow, and yeah, and it's like I get it. A lot of the MCU is based on the Ultimate Universe, you know, the Ultimates, instead of the classic Avengers. But Cyborg being a JLA member is still pretty new. Now, they do a little bit of like Terminator and RoboCop stuff with Cyborg, which I appreciated. You gotta do stuff like that with a character like that. Now, DCU villains. Zod is intense to obviously one-note evil, although he justifies it in the service of Krypton. Doomsday is boring, no personality at all. Enchantress is okay. Personally, I enjoyed her, but I'll admit there are a bunch of things about that movie that I enjoy that I know aren't that good. Ares is interesting, but has a little screen time for him to be that memorable. Ludendorff and Dr. Poison are campy in their evilness and work as a threat to humanity. Steppenwolf, I mean, he's ultimately not that threatening, which is ironic because he clearly could annihilate the team members if they didn't work together, if they weren't well trained at what they do. And he's also a huge threat to humanity, but you know, but I appreciate the deep voice and the look. Again, I don't like that it's obviously CGI. They should have used his real face and just made that, you know, do some makeup on him. And other than that, you know, I mean, he reminds me of that Doom monster, the one in the first Doom that like throws green slime at you and like looks like, I think, what's it, like a goat, humanoid goat kind of thing. But yeah, you know, uninteresting villain. Meanwhile, the first villain the Avengers fought was Loki, everyone's favorite supervillain of recent memory, the MCU or otherwise. And I quite like Karen Hines as Steppenwolf, although, you know, all CG and him shot in screen screen, yeah, didn't like. And pretty good amount of screen time for him, and he's introduced early on, and you understand what's going on with him, although, again, a lot of his character stuff was clearly cut. But yeah, it's fairly compelling. Like, he makes an impression. He's first there, even if not that much of one. Now, let's see. Okay. Characters, the team. Let's see. Now, the MCU Avengers are a family, MCU Guardians of the Galaxy are a family, DCU Suicide Squad claim they're a family. The DCU JLA, not really. Like, I mean, they more or less get along, but there's not that much going on between the characters. And, like, these characters, you know, are they, you know, more different from one another than the MCU Avengers? I find that they do enough in the film solo and team up to keep the MCU Avengers distinct from one another, but Batman and Superman are very much alike in the DCU so far. Yeah, this Wonder Woman doesn't have a lot of personality. You know, this Aquaman, I mean, he's not that much like the other JLA members, but he's not that, yeah, I don't, maybe it'll work in the solo film, him being this kind of like Wolverine of this universe, but in some ways, not in all, but so far, not really. Yeah, you know, some of it. One thing I really feel like, maybe this is like reshoot stuff. When he and Batman first meet, he's like, "Aren't you that guy who dresses like a bat?" And then when the two start fighting together, there's that clip you see in the trailer, "Dressed like a bat." I dig it. It's like, did someone write that line and forget which scene it was supposed to go in? I mean, just have him acknowledge that he said the opposite before, now that I see you dressed as a bat, I date or something. Now, let's see. The JLA don't really fight, they fight Steppenwolf and they fight the faceless goons, but they don't fight each other much, which would be cliche, and we already saw Batman and Superman fight, but still. And DCU is already ripping off the MCU in so many ways. Now, DCU up to this point has sort of been envious of and ripping off Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. I was wondering if this was going to as well. I guess, if so, I can't currently quite come up with an example of that, I don't think. But it might be. I'd say it's vague, the thing of, like, another character using the Batmobile. Now, the action scenes are not all that varied, although it is nice that, they fight fairly differently from each other, at least some of the time, but we don't get that many scenes where they fight completely independently of one another. And once they start fighting in the same basic, then they're just fighting as a team and fighting Steppenwolf, and fighting Steppenwolf doesn't really get very different from it needed more, like, different goals. Like, there's this one scene where, like, some of the heroes are like, we gotta go save those people. That's interesting, that's different from the others. It needed more of that. There's cool weapons, tech, skills, and such. And as far as I can tell, no Carla Gugino. And yeah, outside of that owl movie, she's been in everything else he's directed since and including Watchmen. I figured maybe she'd have a voice role like in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, but if there was one, I didn't notice it. And that was this part. Let's see. I'm not gonna get much into the critics. Just briefly, Rotten Tomatoes. When I wrote it down, this had a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average rating of 5.3 out of 10 and 228 reviews counted, while the audience score was 86%. Man of Steel got 55, the critics 75% audience, Batman v Superman 27 critics, 63% audience, Suicide Squad 26% critics, 61% audience, and Wonder Woman, of course, 92% critics, 89% audience. I love that movie. Which brings us to thoughts. Please note that this video has spoilers for the subject. Okay. Should move. There we go. Notes taken while watching. Let's see. Suppose I'm going to go in chronological order, which means since I forgot to mark where it was, I might need to go in the... I don't think I wrote it down anywhere. I liked near the end where you see Wonder Woman having stopped, bad guys, and she tied them in the lasso of truth. So they're like explaining who they're working for and admitting other stuff they've done directly to the police. Love that. Again, seems like a Joss Whedon kind of thing, but it might have been a Snyder thing. He does have a sense of humor. Let's see. I guess that one was not. Let's see if I can fill the air with something more interesting. I like the bit where she used it, off screen and picked up one of the, The scene where they bring Superman to life reminded me way too much of Age of Ultron, creation of Vision. Batman literally says, "Don't worry, I have a contingency plan if Superman wants to fight." Well, what was it? Or did I miss something? He didn't seem to... And this, in the comics, he does. He does have detailed plans for how to defeat his teammates if they turn evil. And, Superman fighting the JLA really reminded me of Age of Ultron's Avengers fighting Vision. And again, MCU does it better. I like how Barry is like impatient and he doesn't get people, who doesn't understand brunch. Do you bleed? That's not too bad. Call back. Oh wait, right. Lois Lane, I guess, was the contingency plan. Sorry about that. And Superman is like, well, I guess I don't want to save people. It's just, Folding Ideas points out that I almost fell over there because I'm really sleepy. Folding Ideas points out that Superman really has changed who he is now because he's much nicer and he smiles and such. I really thought that Superman being so much stronger than everyone else on the team was really boring. I felt like if they had brought him back to life at the start of the movie, it seems like it would have... I mean, keeping in mind, Atlanteans had one and Amazonians had one mother box, and that was all they needed. If Wonder Woman had been like, according to the legends, there's, mother, maybe they can't take the one from Themyscira, but almost at the Amazon. But Atlanta, just talk to Aquaman and be like, this is all we're gonna ask of you. Just get us Superman. Let us borrow the mother box. And yeah, Superman could have ended the movie in 10 minutes, clearly. And let's see. And Aquaman is like, the water does the talking. And I thought, maybe there's going to be a payoff for that. If there was, I missed it. And let's see. I like Aquaman accidentally admitting a lot because he's sitting on the lasso of truth. It reminds me of that comic, which I didn't find it all that funny, unfortunately, where Wonder Woman's sitting and saying mean things about the JLA members one by one, and then it turns out Lasso wrapped around her like, I get it, I just didn't think. I don't really like mean Diana, but, you know, whatever. Once Superman went into the movie and started fighting, I really felt like it was like fanfic. It's like, he's just so boringly overpowered. Wonder Woman is also supposed to be super strong and super fast, and apparently Superman doesn't have a problem being fast enough for the Flash to. I mean, that I really thought there, okay, this is it. We're gonna get the big cool thing of like a reversal where but nope. Why did Batman keep running out of ammo? Did they just run out of ways for him to be slightly in a bad situation in a fight? And the thing with, that this is definitely East. And, the two of them trying to outrun each other, first in the movie itself and then the mid-credits scene, I liked, right out of the comics. And, Superman banters. I like that now we have the ice breath of Superman, chopping off the axe. And then, I swear, and this is probably Joss Whedon, they go full on like Lion King Scar with him. Like, suddenly, all the creatures that were helping him jump onto him and attack him. I mean, the Scar actor is in the movie. He's just not playing a bad guy. But yeah, like the race mid-credits, it sets up now we're having some more fun. But yeah, Superman just wipes the floor with Steppenwolf. He's supposed to be a conqueror. This was the guy who it took countless. I mean, it took several Green Lanterns, countless Amazonians, countless Atlanteans, and they beat him, but it wasn't like super easy. Superman does it in no time. I get that he wasn't around back then, nor was any other Kryptonian, obviously, but nevertheless, it was really boring. Now, the post-credits scene. I gotta admit, I really loved it. You've got the first you see that Luthor fled got out of prison, and you have Deathstroke, and you see nope, he only has the one eye, and I mean normally he works alone, but yeah, he is a member of the and the thing with A League of Their Own, it's still don't like the way they have this Luthor talk, but at least this time it was brief. And yeah, him saying that, yeah, it might be the Injustice League then, which I guess is what the JLA 2 will be, the Injustice League and Darkseid. And this is not the first time we see this Lex Luthor bald, but this is the first time we see him calm and in a comfortable setting, and thus really owning the baldness. And yeah, I thought it worked. But the reason I wasn't super annoyed by him probably was because he had so little screen time, so little chance to. But yeah, the idea of the Injustice League, or possibly the Legion of Doom, awesome. And I'm sorry, this Deathstroke looks exactly right. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I suppose, yeah, that's it for those notes. Let's see what I had. Let's see. Let's see. Characters. Considering that they literally put the Superman logo, the hope symbol, on the poster. It's like, okay, you really want people to know that Superman's going to be in it. I really missed the black suit. As Folding Ideas points out, it's super obvious. The mustache removal. Let's see. Now, I was wondering if this was going to make a major dumb change to the status quo. Man of Steel made Superman a murderer, a kinslayer, BVS killed him off. Let's see. Is there one in this? Not really, I don't think, and maybe that's part of the whole, and yeah, Wonder Woman. Actually, no, Wonder Woman, it was just the one of her not having been around for ages, and that was not that movie's decision. That had to work with that from Batman v Superman. But yeah, they're getting closer to getting to the right place for the franchise. I just really hope that if Aquaman does well and Cyborg does well, maybe the DCU will stay afloat. And given that for a lot of this movie it's Batman, I was excited to see the JLA on this little screen. Since he died, I guess, unlike expected, it won't be under the Man of Steel's supervision. Excuse me?